All right. What we're going to talk about today is wellness. And I really want to talk about, like, in the 8 dimensions of wellness, the fitness spoke is the one that I always recommend that everybody begins with because there's so much power in, like, finding your headspace, and getting your strength and your breath. It's huge. The benefits are so vast. And so, one of the things that I'm really focused on right now is the idea that even though while I was in federal prison, I worked out every single day, like, well, 6 days a week. I did a hardcore workout, and yet still, I came home in with a poor BMI, and it's because 70 to 80% of the game is food. And the food in the BOP is processed and full of sodium and carbs and starches. And so my focus has been to, first of all, really, like, restore my gut balance. And like, that's key when you're trying to reboot yourself and to gain better fitness. So I have been taking some probiotics and prebiotics with digestive enzymes. And also, I made some homemade kimchi, and I drink a lot of kombucha. And I try to have, like, some berries and yogurt every single day. And so, for anybody who's watching this, like, it's so important for you to be conscious of your food. Like, if you're working out all day long, or even if you're just working out an hour a few times a week, you're not going to get the same results as if you were being more mindful about eating clean. And when I say clean, I'm talking about lots of fruits and vegetables. And, it's crazy because, like, a friend of mine, her husband, he got out of federal prison, and he went to the doctor, and the doctor found tons of heavy metals in his system. Because while we're there, we think that we're doing our body service by eating the best option, which is like packaged mackerel and tuna, but those are very high in heavy metals. And so I know that cilantro is the best recipe for that. But anyway, so that's kind of where we're going to go today. I want to talk about that. And I really wanted to talk about, like, the a prison diet of carbohydrates, heavy starches, processed food, limited produce, limited healthy proteins. And it's so incredibly difficult to get nuts and berries and tuna and salmon on commissary. They're not consistently available. And so this leads to, like, sugar cravings and an impact on your BMI. And so if you're home and you're not trying to navigate the prison system in a healthy way, really, for those who are transitioning home, I just wanted to bring that up, that, like, I took the first 2 weeks to kind of indulge in things that I hadn't had in a long time, like delicious quiche and pastas and pizza and stuff. But those aren't things that I want to eat regularly because they're a little bit too rich for daily consumption. But I have found that, like, for me, um, the best way to do it is intermittent fasting, which I did while I was incarcerated. But when you're intermittent fasting, it really like, helps you achieve your weight loss goals and weight management goals, because your body needs time to, like, rest and repair. And so I always try to look at it like this: like, if you are fueling your body for your workout, and then after your workout, like, fueling it with, like, a little bit of carbs, some fruit, yogurt, some oatmeals. But after your workout, you want to make sure and add that protein, like the repair from the workout. And so it's so important, though, to do, like, especially, like, juicing. Now, I do a lot of juicing. And so if you're trying to detox your body and reboot yourself by juicing, like, garlic, turmeric, and ginger every single day, or at least 3 or 4 times a week, is going to really change the game for you. It's an amazing fact that if you juice beets, turmeric, and garlic with some ginger, and maybe put a little bit of carrot or pear in with it to kind of just cut that beet like whoa, then and I always love to throw some basil in there because juicing herbs is just so amazing for repair. And so, if you take the time to, I know juicing is a big deal, and a lot of people don't like to do it because it's such a big ordeal to clean up after yourself, but it's so worth it. And I mean, there's a lot of controversy over like storing your juice overnight, but I do, and it's just as impactful. But what I have found, and I found this out a long time ago. I watched this cool documentary about these two guys who were in the army, and so what they did was they juiced beets. Okay, they had the same fitness schedule. Like they were both capable of the same amount of run on the treadmill. So they hooked them up with all these wires, and then they put them on the treadmill, and one they had beet juice and the other didn't. Now, so that's important for me because I'm one of those people who like, if I'm running, like there's this thing in my mind. It's like, if I run this amount, like I'm done. Like I just want to stop. And then like when you juice beets though, it's like you have this extra drive to go a little further and do a little harder. And like you don't even think about it. It's just like physiologically happening. And so I really want to encourage anybody who's trying to kickstart a wellness program and a workout regimen to juice some beets and see how it affects you. So, um, with intermittent fasting, I found that the beautiful thing about it, and mind you, I read every fitness book ever published while I was incarcerated. I read the HIT book and followed the methods. Now, prior to my incarceration, I was one of those chicks who did like P90X and Insanity. I went to CrossFit. I started out in the gym when I was like 4, doing gymnastics, and then I went on to ballet. So I understand that I have cellular memory that I know is beneficial to me now. However, like I said, having eaten shitty food for 10 years has taken a toll on me. And I don't feel like the results of my workout were satisfactory. And so, with that being said, intermittent fasting really helps you. So, what I do is I have an alarm and I don't eat until 10 o'clock. So at 10 o'clock is when I eat, and I've already had my workout by then, right? So now I have a little green tea when I wake up, maybe even a cup of coffee because I'm a coffee girl. It's just what you put in the coffee that really changes it, right? So I just put a tiny dash of honey, some turmeric and cinnamon, and even like a little bit of coconut oil sometimes if I want to get that little like ooh. So lemon water is the first thing I drink when I wake up. Warm lemon water. And then after my workout at 10 o'clock, so now I've had a nice little workout, and then I drink my lemon water. And afterwards, I have an egg. But what I like to do is I like to take the salad out of the refrigerator that was left over from the night before. Generally, it's kale or spinach based. And I dump it in my little pan. And then I put the egg over it and I put the lid on it. And it makes the most amazing breakfast. Then at about noon or 1 o'clock, I have like a bowl of berries with a little bit of yogurt. And then around 2 o'clock, I might have a little bit of kimchi with a tiny bit of couscous or something. And then at night, about 6 o'clock and no later, I make sure and have a salad. And I find that that's just so incredibly powerful. So if I don't eat after 6 and I don't eat before 4, before 10 in the morning, that gives me the most beautiful framework for intermittent fasting. And I'm able to fuel my workout and keep my metabolism going nicely. Mind you, I'm a woman over 50. Actually, I'm over 55. So, but this is good for anybody. So, the other thing I really wanted to talk about was the weekends. So, it's not okay to just like live with no reward. So, I find that on Friday nights, if I've had a great week and I've worked out well and eaten well, and it's nice to reward myself and kind of like, hey, you did it, good job. Friday night is also the time for me where I like to spend time with family and friends and cook. And that's when I like eat after 6. And because around here, nobody eats till like 8 because they're all very Latin. And so on Friday nights and even sometimes Saturday nights, I'll have like something decadent, like quiche or, some pasta or something that I really love, or like fajitas or something. And so I think that that just makes a huge difference in how you see your life, especially because there's so much to be said for rewarding yourself for good behavior. I mean, like one of the things that I remember from when I was wrapped up in the drug culture is that it's like there was no sense of accomplishment. It's like every day you're just celebrating something that's not even real. And so I think that it's so important, not just in fitness and in eating, but it's so important in life to like set some goals, achieve those goals, and then celebrate. I think that that's the loop that we should be on. I think it's just definitely a recipe for success. I wanted to talk to you about what's going on in Aliceville. Before I left, remind you, there's many spokes of the wellness wheel. There's 8 spokes of the 8 dimensions of wellness, and today we're only talking about the physical spoke. But what we did while we were there is, well, what I implemented before I left that they're still now doing is we realized that we were having a hard time tracking accountability. So what we did is came up with this 90-day challenge. So for the fitness spoke of the wheel, this is what we did. So I realized that one of the things I had recognized from helping women achieve their wellness and weight loss goals while incarcerated was that they were very, very prone to stepping on the scale. And that is such a trap, right? It's such a trap because when you start stepping on the scale to gauge your progress, when you start working out and trying to be mindful of what you're eating and up in your water game, in about 2 weeks, you start to build muscle, and your muscle weighs more than fat. And it was so funny because I used to love to tell the girls, I was like, speaking a language that everyone understood, a pound of weed and a pound of cocaine. It's kind of like a pound of fat and a pound of muscle. One is bigger than the other, but they both weigh the same. And so when you step on the scale, you've got to be mindful of that. And so, like, especially a lot of the times at the gym, the only place to weigh yourself was in the gym. So they would do their workout and then they would go step on the scale. Well, you're 3 pounds heavier after a workout in general, right? So instead, what we decided to do was measure everyone. So on the day of the Fit Challenge kickoff, our mentors, the fitness mentors, each mentor, there's 120 mentors at Aliceville right now. And so in each unit, there are 10. So about 2 to 3 of those mentors are specifically there to help people reach their fitness goals. That's so beautiful, right? And so these are the chicks that work at the gym that are very privileged to teach the Zumba classes and the HIIT classes and all that stuff. And so what a win-win situation, right? So the first step to the fitness challenge was to measure each participant, measure their neck, their arms, their chest, their waist, their hips, and their thigh, and write it down. We made these cool little tickets like to write it down. And then the next thing we did was a fit test. And if you're trying to kick off a wellness program for yourself and you're trying to like really decide to make some changes and you want to see where you're beginning and you want to be able to gauge your progress, the best thing to do is start with a fit test. So all you have to do, and so what we did in federal prison is we had a group of women. Like I said, the fitness mentors would get like 10 chicks, maybe 5 or 10. And when we did it at REC as a big event, we had like 50 people doing it all at once, right? And so we had somebody timing each little station. And in those stations, it's where you set the timer for 1 minute. It's super simple to do at home and you don't need anything. And so you set the timer for 1 minute and you count how many squats you can do in 1 minute. It's easy peasy, right? Then you set the timer for 1 minute and see how many jacks you can do. Set the timer for 1 minute and see how many sit-ups you can do. Set the timer for 1 minute and see how many push-ups, burpees, and just keep track of how many you can do. Write it down on the back of your little measurement your little measurement slip, and it works out so well. The other thing we like to do is see who can hold a plank the longest. Now, in the fit challenge, you try to hold a plank for a minute. And when you're doing your fit test, a lot of people can go further than that, and that's fine too. But the goal is to just try to do a minute that first day. And then also we would have somebody out on the track to see how many laps they could do in how long. And by writing this down and documenting the beginning of your journey, and like every 6 months, measuring yourself again and taking another fit test, you'll be able to really see your progress. It's so incredibly powerful. So our 90-day challenge, we tried to keep it very simple. And let's see. Let's see what we were doing. So everybody is at a different place, right? It may be that push-ups and planks and burpees and squats and jacks are very challenging for you. So in the challenge, we tried to keep it where everyone could be involved. So you could either do a daily walk for 90 days or the fit test that you just took, you could do that 4 times a week and try to just make a small measurable accomplishments a little bit more each day. And then or you could attend the weekly rec classes for 90 days, or maybe just go to Zumba class for 90 days. So we wanted everybody to feel included, And so if you're watching this video and you're thinking, oh, I really want to kickstart a wellness program for myself, then I encourage you to just find something that you enjoy and that you can do and measure it and just try to do a little more the next day or the next week and try to stick with it for 90 days. And you'll find that you feel such a great sense of accomplishment and you'll also feel better. It's so powerful when you really start making an improvement. One of the things that I was very firm about with the mentors when we were teaching fitness classes, I would actually have them sign a contract. And at the beginning of every workout, I would ask them while we were doing our stretches, like, what are you grateful for today? Focus on what you're grateful for. And we would go around the circle and actually state, put it out into the universe, like what you're grateful for. And I know that sounds like some real hippie woo-woo bullshit, but the fact is that if you can find that space in your mind and in your heart to think about what you're grateful for at the beginning of your workout is going to be so much more powerful. It's a fact. Like I've seen it happen. And then at the end, I ask them again when we're doing our after workout stretch. And it's amazing how their gratitude shifts to like such a better sense of accomplishment. And having done a workout, it's such a mindfulness technique, I really like doing compound exercises. And, it's one thing to do squats and jacks and burpees and stuff. It's great when you're counting. That's a mental aerobics. I time mine, but I always like as a habit count how many I can do within that minute or 2 minutes or whatever. And if you're just starting out, 15 seconds of squats or 15 seconds of jacks, all of that is completely noble. The next week, try to go up to 30 seconds, So But one of the things that I was very strict about was that negative self talk. And when you're in a group and you're working out, or if you're just all by yourself, if you notice, like if somebody in your group says, oh, my back hurts, or I can't do this, or this is like, I've had such a bad day, and that's what's going on through your mind. Not only does it spread like a disease through the group, because I'm 55. Most of the chicks I was working out with and training were in their 20s. So when they would say something about their knee hurting, well, obviously it's like the power of suggestion. And everyone in the circle starts thinking about what their pain is. And I was dealing with quite a bit of pain because I'd had a few injuries from working out on that hard pavement for so many years. And anyway, so the bottom line is that the rule is if you say something negative, and this is such good training for your life, if you say a self defaming proclamation or something negative or like a self defeating thought verbalized, then I insist, and so do my mentors now, that you stop, say the opposite, like, I'm so strong, or my body works so well, or I can do this, or I'm a powerful chick, whatever it is. But then you have to do 3 burpees. And before long, after when you get called out a few times and have to do burpees, you finally, it's kind of like clicker training a dog. You finally start to really retrain your thought. And before you speak, you're more conscious of what you're saying. And you eventually start to think that positive thought instead. And this is so universal in your life. You can apply this science. I used to teach this class and I called it Flip the Script, where we can really sit down and look at our emotions. That's part of emotional intelligence. When you sit down and really take inventory, one of my pet peeves has become like, I don't know if they do it in the whole world, but in federal prison, all the girls started having this, like, I noticed this, language that they were using. Like, you're making me feel some type of way. Okay, so how are you feeling? It's so important to identify those emotions in that moment so that you can really process how you feel. Some real textbook RDAP stuff, but it's powerful. And in Flip the Script, what we do is I am like, I am sad, or I am angry, or I feel sad, I feel angry, I am angry. And so when you flip the script, you say, I feel disappointed, but I feel hopeful. I am disappointed, but I'm hopeful. I am hopeful, and that's just a silly example, but that you can fill it in so many different ways. And so sometimes I find that the reason why when I started the Peer Success Program and I started promoting wellness through going through the spokes of the wellness wheel, I always started each person I mentored with the fitness spoke. I found that a lot of the women, they weren't ready to work on their family ties or their family connections. They weren't ready to work on the community spoke of the wheel. They just needed a space to clear their head, get their breath, and find power in themselves. And that is what you can find when you start fostering the spoke of the fitness wheel, or the physical spoke of the wheel. And so let's see, where should we go from there? It's all about your mindset, right? So I think that it's important to talk about, um, the power of passing it on. So, and accountability. So I think one of the things that really kept me so driven in my physical life in Aliceville was that whereas there were times and seasons where I needed the space to kind of work out on my own, But it was never very long before long, like 20 people come up. They're like, Miss Celeste, when are you going to start working out, doing another workout group? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I think it's that season. And so there's so much power in like community for fitness. And, I know a lot of people like to go to gyms, and that's where that community comes from. But I encourage you, like, if you're one of those people who always just tunes out the world and put your headphones on and you're doing your thing, like find a space in your season to give back and help somebody else, because that's where the power is. It's not genius to hold it all to yourself. It's community to give it away. And on my worst days when I didn't feel like working out, I had a group that was waiting for me to come out and work out with them, and that kept me motivated. And there were times in federal prison where I fell on dark days and I didn't want to get out of bed because I couldn't see the road ahead of me that was 30 years long. And so on those days, being accountable to a group saved me, it was so incredibly important. So here I am transitioning from a schedule where, like, the BOP called rec every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they called rec every day at 12. Now I say every day. On on an average, they called rec at 8 o'clock. They called rec at 9 o'clock. They called rec at 10 o'clock. I mean, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And so my schedule evolved around that rec call. Now I'm transitioning. I'm 35 days home, and life happens. And so I have to be more particular than ever in my schedule. And, my father, he taught me a lot of interesting things. And at the time, I just kind of took it all in and filed it away. But my daddy, he used to get up at 6 o'clock every morning, having drank late at night and done whatever. Nonetheless, every single morning at 6 o'clock, he woke up and he ran. And I remember him telling me, he's like, Celeste, life gets crazy, but no matter what I do the rest of the day for whoever, if I go out and do one thing for me for an hour or two, then I'm going to be able to do what I need to do for others the rest of the day. And that's so powerful if you think about it. Like, if you're a mom, or you're a CEO, or you're just a chick transitioning home from federal prison, life gets fast. And if you take the time every morning to start your day, however early you have to get up to do it, to satisfy your daily crazy schedule, get up and drink some lemon water, and at least for 30 minutes, do something that's physically challenging and get your heart rate up, even if it means to do yoga that day. I like to do HIIT on Sunday, which, mind you, it's 11 o'clock, and I've already done an amazing HIIT routine. I only did 25 minutes today. That's all it takes sometimes, right? And so tomorrow is Monday. I'm going to do burpees after my walk run. I run the hills and I walk the slopes, and then I come in and I do like 30 minutes of burpees and squats and stuff on Mondays. And on Tuesdays, I'm going to walk and run and do some jacks and jumps. And I really love doing jumps. And I'm really grateful that at 55, I can still do like knee slaps and jump squats and all of that cool stuff without having any rollover pain. I think the turmeric really helps with that. And plus, I think I've noticed such a difference in just how I feel having for 35 days consumed organic fresh fruits and vegetables and kimchi and, you know, um, probiotics and prebiotics. It's such a game changer. And so if you have a fetish for chips or processed food or all that crap, one of the things I used to teach the girls that I think will stick with you is that everybody has always, like, one thing we probably all have in common is that we've always had that one house guest who comes over, you know who it is. They come over and they sleep in your guest room or on your couch. They leave a mess. They use your last cup of milk or drink your last beer, whatever it is. I don't drink beer, but I'm just saying. Or they borrow your car, they bring it back with no gas, and there's trash in the car. Like it's just a whole, you could name a million things that are like your pet peeve that invade your little space, and they bring nothing to the table. Right. They don't have any rent money. They don't buy any groceries. It's just one of those situations that, I had a friend one time, she used to always tell me, like, fish and house guests have something in common. They all go bad in 3 days. And so the point of the story is that food, everything you consume, you should think of it as a house guest who brings nothing to the table. Chips bring nothing to the table. Candy bars bring nothing to the table, And so you want to eat like 80% of your food should be something that's bringing something to the table. And when I say table, I'm talking about the bank that is your body that you're making deposits in for wellness, deposits that will keep you from dementia, heart disease, cancer, and having to go to the doctor all the time. Eastern medicine and Western medicine are so far apart. And I have so much respect for Eastern medicine because they live a life where they're making daily deposits for wellness. Whereas Western medicine, we tend to do whatever we want and know that the doctor will put a band aid on it later. And it just doesn't translate to a long, healthy, vitality driven life. And so, as I said, I'm transitioning home on a schedule. I'm pleased with how things are going, and whereas when I look at my body in the mirror, it's kind of disappointing, and it really propels me to pursue a line of conversation with Congress and the DOJ and the BOP to try to get fresh garden vegetables. There should be a garden in every federal prison. They are sitting on all this land. And when I tell you that for 10 years, I wrote Earth Justice and 20 senators and the head of the BOP and everybody I could find an address for, telling them what a three-pronged solution a garden project would be at federal prison Aliceville, where there's tons of unused land. The women would benefit so much from getting their hands in the soil. And like it's such a place for healing, right? That's how I heal myself. I was grateful to work in the garden, but it was flower garden, but nonetheless, all of my best inspiration came from that flower garden. So the second solution, the second prong of that beautiful solution would be that they're going to be eating what they grow. A lot of federal prisons, I'm not going to say it, not at Aliceville, but at some federal prisons, they allow like a 1 square foot for them to grow what they want to eat. And so I did make a proposal before I left. And unfortunately, yet possibly fortunately, I left before I could start it. But Warden Jennifer Broton had given me a thumbs up. So I left all of my proposal with the Peer Success Mentor Program. And hopefully one of them will pick it up and run with it, and believe me, I'm going to send word if I can to remind them to get that going because I think that it's such a game changer. The third prong of that benefit is in community. There are all federal prisons predominantly are in poverty-stricken areas. That's why they build prisons there, to generate income and prosperity for disenfranchised neighborhoods or communities. So, what a beautiful thing if they were growing vegetables, eating vegetables, and giving the excessive amount of vegetables to the local communities, like senior centers or domestic violence centers, whatever it is. I think that that's such a win-win-win situation that we would be foolish not to all promote that. I was watching the Chrisleys 2.0, and I think it's so great that people with such a big voice and a huge audience were able to see firsthand um, the things that could be improved on and the reality of the situation. And I really appreciate that they're using their voice, and they talk about the food and the lack of fresh food. And so it's almost like double jeopardy, right? When you put somebody in prison, like I ate dandelions out of the ground every day because I know the power of plucking something from the earth and eating it. And so everybody thought I was crazy except the Asian women that were there. Like they were the only ones that were like, oh yeah, she knows what she's doing. And so I literally, like there are 2 seasons where dandelions don't grow on the rec yard or in the garden or out on the lawn. Um, and luckily I was the gardener, so I had access to those areas, and I had little spots where I would like literally plant a plot of dandelions so that the mowers couldn't get to it or whatever. And so I would pluck them like literally every day, unless it was too hot and they burned out, or when there was a hard freeze, it would be impossible. But generally speaking, 75% of the year, I was able to go out and forage dandelions, even if it was just a handful. I would stuff them in my pocket or put them in my hat and bring them back from rec or bring them home from work. And like literally, I got busted one time because I had a locker full of dandelions, and they were like, "What do you do with these dandelions?" I was like, I'm gonna eat them." And they're like, "Oh, y'all are probably smoking dandelions." I was like, "No, why don't you Google it? Why don't you Google the benefits of eating dandelions? They're so great for your metabolism and your digestive system. It's considered a bitter. And I find it so interesting that this country waged war against dandelions. Like Roundup Ready literally eradicated dandelions from every lawn in America, and laughed all the way to the bank. But I used to go to this place called Urban Health in Fort Worth, and this chick was so wild, and she had a dandelion patch in the background in the backyard, and she's the one who turned me on to that. So the first thing I did when I got to federal prison at Hazleton was like sort of in the true native live off the land kind of vibe. I sought out what was growing on the rec yard that could consume, pluck from the earth, and immediately eat. After I koshered it, right, I would soak it in salt water and clean it, and then I over the years I developed all these amazing recipes. Right, it seasonally the dandelions were sometimes they were more fresh and abundant, but sometimes they were a little hard. So sometimes I would make a dandelion soup, and when I say make a soup, I mean like added hot water and a little bit of beef bouillon or something with some nuts and jalapenos or fish, whatever, some berries that I could buy off commissary. And but in the seasons where they were fresh, like springtime, I would literally make a big salad and put lemon and it's so what I'm saying is it's kind of like double jeopardy to take someone out of a place where sort of like we did the Native Americans when we first invaded this land, and we plucked them out of the land where they knew what to forage for and what to hunt for, and they literally stuck them in a pen somewhere and changed their way of life, and it led to a very unhealthy communities who now we punish for their unhealthy habits. But let's not get on that soap dish, right? But what we're talking about now is when you take a person and the judge says, oh, yeah, you've got to do 30 years. Well, it shouldn't be that I have to go somewhere where not only am I separated from my family, but I'm also separated from what I know is going to help me be healthy and happy and like productive in my mind and in my body for the longest amount of my life. Like, uh, there's a lot of people coming out of prison very sick. And so I think that that's something we really need to address. And I really love the fact that I've been on social media and I've been on LinkedIn and I've been watching like what's going on in the world in America right now. And I'm so pleased to see that we've come to this new space and time where there's more awareness and more focus on like um, reentry, and wellness and um, the return on our investment. It was great because you and I talked about that so much when I was locked up, seeing you on video. And I used to get on my little tyrants about, this is ridiculous. We're wasting the taxpayers' money. These people shouldn't be here for this long. It's so funny because I posted on LinkedIn yesterday. They were talking about, home confinement. And I was like, well, when Biden cut my time in half, he saved the taxpayers $850,000. Interesting, right? $850,000 is what they would have paid for me to do 15 more years. When I campaigned for early home confinement and my to get at least some of my FSA points and some of my Second Chance Act credits, and it was approved and I came home 2 years early, the taxpayers saved $112,000. And I had already done a decade in prison for a nonviolent drug offense. Can you imagine? 560,000 is what they already spent. And I'm grateful because I became the best version of myself. And not to get off topic, but I think that there's power in that. There's power in understanding that our return on investment includes helping people to become the best version of themselves. And it starts with the physical spoke of the wheel. And it's 80% of the game is what they're eating. So if you've got a bunch of people like that you're putting into the medical system through heavy starch diets and lots of carbohydrates and processed food, well, when they do come home, finally, they're going to be taxing our medical system. It's relevant, right? Anyway, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I just wanted to share this story with you and know that whoever you are and whatever you're doing, you could kickstart a wellness program today. And I just hope that something I said today will inspire you. Peace.